everybody, and welcome to the 6th interview as part of our COVID STEM educator interview series. Today I have with me Senior Lecturer Jason Butt.
Jason Butt.
Jason Butt from the School of Software and Electrical Engineering. So, hi Jason, how are you going?
Hey Angela, not too bad.
How are you coping with the COVID situation?
It's been hard. It's a lot more work working from home than it is coming on campus. I certainly am looking forward to coming back on campus and meeting with people face to face again.
That's one thing I do miss is you and Tony having the 4 o'clock espresso. I was just wondering if you could let me know the two main units that you're teaching this semester.
Yeah, look, we teach 2 units. One is our first entry-level unit, essentially a first-year unit called Networks and Switching, which, if you'd like, is Data Networking 101, so Introduction to the Internet for people who basically know nothing. And our other one, Broadband Multimedia Networks, is one of our capstone data networking units. So this is our top-level, big picture, how do we improve the Internet, how do we manage the Internet, and how do we make the internet better going forwards into the future. We're usually looking in the order of 700 students a year.
Wow. How did the labs work in those 2 units?
Well, telecoms is really interesting. It's a very, very practical, skills-oriented environment. It means we're really focused around giving the students the practical skills in order to be able to build and deploy systems. It's not that pure theoretical basis. So we really work very, very heavily around getting the students real access to real systems and real equipment. So in broadband multimedia, we have had for a large number of years now a remote lab facility where the tools and the systems the students use are available and accessible online, which means students can work on their lab work 24/7 at any time. The scheduled labs we have on campus are essentially to provide guided support and instructional support from our teaching staff to the students. So the students come on campus for support in their labs, but if they're doing well or progressing well, they don't have to because they do have 24/7 access. If I want to think about how labs can be delivered, we've got 3 options, and we've got the option of virtual lab, simulated lab, remote lab. And what does that mean? Well, a virtual lab to me is something where the students, it's a lab that is not really a lab, as in they're not doing the lab work itself. So this might be something along the lines where we've videoed somebody doing the lab, we've collated the results, and we've provided the results to the students. The students watch the lab being done, and then they analyze the outcome. So while they're not doing the skills, they're still learning from the process, and that is particularly suitable in classes where the outcome of the analysis and the studying of the results of the labs is a key outcome of doing the labs in the first place. If we move a step up, we can move to simulated labs. And in simulated labs, you're not working on real equipment, but you are able to do the lab using a simulator or some form of simulated environment where you're sort of doing the lab, but it's not quite the real thing. But when it comes to telecoms, we really want our students to have practical skills. So we wanted to try and see, can we move our labs to a remote lab, similar to what we're using for broadband multimedia, where can we give students access to the facilities remotely so they can still work with real equipment? Because one of the things we're really worried about was the exercise of, can we still give our first year students the hands-on practical experience?
That's great. So, and thanks for the clarification around virtual labs, simulated labs and remote labs. I'm sure a lot of people probably didn't know the difference between the 3. So thanks for clearing that up.
It's been a challenge of how can we provide a remote lab access facility? Because one of the difficulties when it comes to networking is, even if I provide students access to a piece of equipment on campus, it's not one piece of equipment, it's multiple pieces of equipment, and they all need to be connected and wired to each other in order for a lab to work.
Well done for getting that done, because, what a great resource. Because, going into semester 2, depending on the COVID risk, if the risk increases, we may have to continue on with the remote labs.
Absolutely. And I think one of the interesting things that's come out, because I've spoken to a lot of students across the range of their courses, is certainly the advanced students, so the ones who have already done the first unit practically and hands-on, are really loving the remote access and are really coping very well with it. They're not struggling at all. They're understanding what's going on and they're really utilizing the facilities. I can appreciate that for our first year students, it's been the hardest, and that's because they don't have any existing skills coming in and backing them up. And I know that this has been hard for them, but I shudder to think how much harder it would have been had we not been able to provide these remote labs.
Yeah, I think it's a matter of adjustment too. I think the more they start to use the remote labs and they start to build that online community, the more they will settle. Jason, I want to move on to talking about your final assessments. Particularly interested in your use of oral assessment. So I thought maybe could you just walk me through your final assessment for your broadband unit? Because I believe you're not having a final assessment for that unit, are you?
What we did in this case was we took the idea around and said, well, let's let the students work without the aid of a tutor, but work together as a group to create this collaborative group environment. I said, you can work together as a group, work through the tutorial tasks, figure them out for yourselves. And then weekly, we give each one of them a 5-minute interview. We've broken up the oral assessment into a continuous series of oral assessments over 8 weeks, the last 8 weeks of semester, and all those marks will be added together at the end to replace.
Right. And that, I imagine that works quite well for small classes, you know, for your broadband unit, you know, you've got roughly 30 students. But in your first year networks and switching unit, you've got over 300 students there.
Correct.
And I believe you're doing an oral final assessment. Is that correct?
Absolutely. So what we are doing is I'm allocating 15-minute blocks for every student. We are having 4 2-hour blocks throughout the day over 2 days. So we're still sticking to the 2-day schedule. We're just expanding the time out a little bit with breaks in the middle so everyone can get a little bit of a rest. And we're running parallel assessment sessions. So we're running multiple parallel assessment sessions of 15 minutes. They're going to be videotaped and recorded. So if there's any queries or, you know, people aren't sure, we can go back and review the recordings and reassess them if necessary.
And how are you preparing your students for the oral? Because surely a lot of them are going to be thinking, oh, English is not my first language. I'm going to be really nervous having to talk in front of the lecturer or the tutor. So how are you preparing them?
So we've done a few things already, and we've got a few more things which we're aiming to do. There was a lot of stress and nervousness amongst the students. And then when they got out at the end of it, I think most of them realized, well, that's the easiest thing I've ever done in my life. You know, that was so short, it's over and it's done. And I'm not stressed over 2 hours assessment or 1 hour or however long it's going to be. Running oral assessments is also about, especially for first up time, is putting students at ease at the start. So look, this is just a chat. You know, we are not here to assess your verbal communication skills. I'm not here to assess your English skills. This is not what the assessment is about. This is assessing your knowledge. So what I'm really looking to assess is how well do you understand the material as it's been taught throughout the course of the semester.
Jason, I just want to thank you for your time. I hope others that might be thinking about setting up remote labs, remote access to labs, watch the video, and others who are also thinking about changing or modifying their final assessment piece. I hope everyone enjoyed this video. Look forward to seeing who's on for next week. Thanks, Jason. Bye, everyone.
Bye, Angela. Bye, everyone.
Bye.